Hello and good morning. This is Persona by Civil.ge, and today we will be talking about Georgian politics in what we hope will become a regular broadcasting ahead of these elections that are scheduled in October 2024. Just a few days ago, we heard the presentation of the new movement, which is called the Freedom Square. The movement that claims to be standing for the professional new faces in Georgian politics and hoping to save Georgia's liberty and democracy. Today, we have invited Levan Tsutskiridze, the head of this movement that has been active in civil society for several years and has been also a very representative and present figure in Georgia's recent protests against so-called Russian law. He is with us today. Hello, Levan. I can see you here, and now hopefully our guests will see you too. I think you have your camera off.
I'm on.
There we go.
Yes, hello.
Yes, you're on.
Hello. Thanks
Hello
for
and
having
welcome.
me. It's a pleasure to be on this podcast. Yes.
So let's jump
Thank
right
you.
into this. First question, a very important one for the political movement. Who do you represent?
Well, we think we represent the aspirations of people who feel that Georgian politics needs to be renewed, and renewed not just mechanically or technically, but renewed with a new content, new energy, and new people. And this is our ambition to bring new people, new ideas, into the political mainstream of Georgia. And I'm very happy that the team, which was at the initial stage of co-founding the movement, is one of the best and the brightest teams from many walks of life in Georgia. People representing different industries and different sectors of public and political life, with very deep, very professional background in education, in defense, in international security, international relations, healthcare, education. So I'm very happy that this team had come together, and we were able to launch this movement jointly.
You have been working with the political parties and political movements for almost 15 years as a civil society representative. And if we look at your website of your previous organization, it says that you were working with them to improve their organizational capacity, ability to formulate their political agendas, etc., etc. Would you say that you creating a political movement now is a testimony of your failure as a coach?
Well, partially yes, but mostly no, because we always understood that we play on the margins of political development, and the key decisions, key events happen within political parties, and there are many factors that impact how political life evolves, and these factors have always been beyond the control of any development assistance organization. Things like constitutional change or which direction the government will take, and so on. On other issues, I'm very proud of the achievements that we at ECMD and in my previous life already have achieved. Uh, to mention just a few, the debate about, generally democracy, internal democracy in the parties, more focus on policy issues, better focus on gender equality in politics, better awareness of some of the key approaches to doing elections, politics, etc. This is where we have contributed heavily, but also and most prominently, I would say, it's the level of democratic political culture in the country. This is something that I'm really very proud of. Also, Java, that we've been very active in democracy education in Georgia. More than 10 years, we've been educating people in what democracy is, why is it important, why is it good for the Georgian society, and the level of Georgians' commitment to democracy, which has been, very evident throughout all these protests this year, last year, and this deep commitment of Georgians to democracy is the commitments that we have not quite failed as coaches in this, I think. And this is extraordinary because we have the government that is totally anti-democratic, anti-European, has been feeding this anti-democratic propaganda for years to the Georgian society in the capital, elsewhere. And despite that, regardless of all the efforts they put in it, Georgians remain staunchly pro-democratic and staunchly pro-European. And to a large extent, I think there is a contribution that we have made to this as well.
Thank you very much, and I want to pick up on what you just said. You've described several symptoms, which we often hear, that there is a state capture, the government is anti-democratic, and it is perceived to be driving Georgia in the direction which is not the direction that most of Georgia's population wants to take. What I want to ask you, as someone who worked on these issues for years, we often hear about the symptoms, but we don't hear enough about the reasons. What do you think? Why do you think we are here? What are these key deficiencies that made this backtracking possible?
Well, we have to look at different levels, to say so, of how Georgian politics have evolved recently. Of course, uh, a part of the problem lies in very deep fragmentation of a political spectrum in Georgia. And this is where we also see our role, maybe to talk about this later, but that we need a stronger consolidation on the opposition side, of politics, and this is where we also hope to contribute to coming together of various political and societal forces. So this fragmentation has contributed to the inability of Georgian political class to mount a credible alternative to the existing government. Well, the erosion of public institutions and political institutions as well, lack of good ideas and lack of new energy and new vision on how to move forward, lack of credible alternatives, that's one, but also the huge influence of money on politics. Georgia, unfortunately, is not at the level of economic development where we would all like to see it. And this huge impact that money has on politics, on political parties, especially on the ruling party, on some of the key decisions they take, is corrupting Georgian politics. And we have arrived at a moment when the government is captured by a small group of people lacking any idea about politics, any political idea whatsoever, barring access to power and wealth. And this is what needs to change. So I think these are some of the reasons, not all, obviously, that have contributed to where we are now. But we can also look a little bit more deeper into Georgia's political evolution, Georgia's political history, and see this trend of always looking for strongmen to lead politics, and even Georgians like to have the government which they elect. Where we are weaker, I think, is staying involved in politics continuously. So we may be very well voting for one government or another, voting out some governments sometimes, but then we disengage. And this is what needs to change. We need to stay in politics. We need to stay in politics and make the political exercise a part of our daily routine. This is what makes people citizens. And this is what I have always been urging for. And this is actually something that government uh, doesn't want to see happening, because you always hear this. You always hear this narrative that NGOs should not be active in politics. People who, I don't know, of different walks of life shouldn't be involved in politics, as if politics is a sole domain of 10 or 15 people from the Georgian Dream. And this is not right. This is anti-democratic. Everyone needs to be involved in politics. And when more people are involved in politics, we will see that we will have more responsible and more accountable government. So this is where this Freedom Square also stands. The name also reflects it, because we want this to be the place of an active exercise of political thought and an active exercise of political rights, which we have still as citizens of this country.
You have said in several interviews, and now you have mentioned it again, that one of your objectives is to keep politics open for participation. What keeps it closed?
Well, generally speaking, it's the generally very close system of political parties. Uh, we've been doing for years, for example, the studies of intra-party democracy in Georgia, in Georgian political parties. And what you see there is that they're not opening up, they're not becoming more transparent. There's not enough room for new people and new ideas. And this is why also we felt that there needs to be something new happening, because the existing system does not want, is not willing, and is not capable to accommodate new people. So, hence, partially the rationale of us entering into the political life. Then the image of politics is also a problem. Politics is perceived, and I think also sometimes deliberately communicated that politics is a dirty business, that stay away from it. So the message, especially from the government, is stay away from it. It is our job to do this dirty job, so you stay away from it. And that of course impacts how people see politics, and then creates this sense of alienation from politics. Then the often violent nature of political life. What we're seeing today in Georgia, in the streets, attacks on people, attacks on activists, physical, verbal, etc. This is something that is designed, is conceived as a tool to keep people away from politics. I very much hope it doesn't work. I see it doesn't work. I see more and more people becoming active. We've seen this during the protests against the Russian law, how new political groups, new social movements emerge to confront it, and this is continuing. But yes, these are some, not all, the factors that keep people away from politics. And again, this is what we see as also our mission, not exclusively, of course, but still, that we need to see how that there can be different rules of the game within the political movements or political parties, such as us, though, that we can be open, we can accommodate diverse opinions, we can accommodate, we can be inclusive rather than exclusive, and that we can be strong by diversity, and we can talk, we can debate, we can come to joint opinions. Sometimes maybe not, but that's not a big problem. That's not a critical problem. So how politics is done, but eventually, I hope that we will be able to open up and democratize politics and make it accessible to more people. Today you see that being politically active is partially equated to being, something like a civic heroism. And there's no need for it to be like this. Politics should be a normal exercise of our civic lives.
A question about that. You said several times, and it's kind of a conceptual foundation, it seems, of your movement, that you want to bring people together. And you have stressed several times that your team that you have presented is uniting the professionals from several fields who are recognized in their work, whether they're teachers, education specialists, doctors, etc., etc., etc. But I want to ask you this. If you want to become a political movement, what binds this team together? Is it ideology? Is it the project of the future? What is that glue that holds you together and to which you want to attract others?
Two main things, I think. One is the common perception of threat that we are facing right now, and then a common vision for the future. In terms of threats, I think people who are united in the Freedom Square movement are the people who see that if there is no democratic breakthrough on October 26th, and by democratic breakthrough, I mean the change of the government, then Georgian democracy is doomed. And so is Georgia's European perspective, and so is welfare and development of Georgia. And Georgia will become some kind of a small uh, part of, I don't know, Russian sphere of influence, again, enmeshed in corruption and poverty, which is not going away because the politics is entirely corrupt. So we all realize the threat. And at the same time, we also realize that look, we have a responsibility to act. We look around the people who are, no, you mentioned very well, prominent teachers, prominent educators, people with excellent service, track record in public service, and so on and so forth. So we look around, we look at each other and say, well, who's going to do that if not you, if not me? Because we also realize that we have maybe some extra responsibility to make that step, take the lead, and make it easier for people to follow us, to take the very same steps together with us. So there is also this awareness that the people who've been involved in the issues of democracy, party building, public service, education, and so etc. We need to do something more. This is the moment when we need to do something more, and this is what unites us together. This sense of common mission, that there is a there this is something to be done. But on the other hand, also we share some of the basic values together about Georgia's future, about the importance of democracy, about the importance of being engaged in politics, about the importance of accountable government, and so on. And we will very soon be presenting what I believe will be very interesting vision for the future of Georgia, more policy and programmatic issues. And I'm very excited to be reading them these days because the people have produced really some outstanding piece of material and very interesting new thoughts on how we need to change things in Georgia.
Very interesting, and I know you're still working on it, and probably not quite ready to discuss the details yet, and perhaps we can speak about them later. But I wanted to ask you one thing. Looking at your presentation and your logo, it's light blue. You have been working on this long enough not to know the symbolism of it. Is it a conservative movement?
Well, we think that this movement is for people who feel that democracy is not incompatible with traditional values. And for people who realize that if we want to protect our families, if we want to protect our traditions, if we want to protect our identity, we need to be both democratic and we need to be the part of Europe because that's the best safeguard for protecting, enriching, and developing some of the most important things that we believe in. So this is the key, and I have always been critical to some of the other movements that have failed to articulate an attractive enough vision for people who are maybe not very liberal in some of their outlooks, etc. So we don't have this clear cut ideological stand right now, but I do believe that Freedom Square should create a space for everyone who believes that Georgia's future lies in Europe with democracy, with accountable government, and these are the best ways to protect human rights and families equally.
Thank you very much for that. Very interesting, and I'll be happy to get back to that once your program is better structured and articulated. Let me ask you this: in response to some of the criticisms that were heard on the political scene, that why are we creating new parties to fragment the already fragmented opposition field in Georgia, you have been saying that your movement is there to unite and not to divide. I want to go a little bit beyond that catchphrase. In politics, as we know, lots of things are about the balance of power. And the ability to form a center of attraction is also about the perceived power of this or that movement and organization. What is your power? Why do you think that you can credibly act as a center of gravity in Georgia's fragmented opposition field?
Well, let's say first of all, the people, the people who are united in Freedom Square. I think every political movement in Georgia or elsewhere, for that matter, would be proud to have that type of people with that kind of clean path, so to say, and that level of professionalism and knowledge and trust among their colleagues. Every single one of the founders, which you saw at the presentation ceremony, is a very credible authority in their fields and in the industries. So that's one. Then another, I think we do have good access to Georgian politics. We've been very active. We have some recognition, we have some credibility. We have good networks, not only in the capital but also throughout entire Georgia, and therefore a lot of social capital. And I think the ideas that we will present and that we're communicating these days will be also a center of gravity. So it's not just some technical space for negotiations or discussion, but also ideas and vision, which I think is very important. That will create this new magnetism, so to say, for other interested parties. So one key question which we asked and continue to ask, and this is something that we're working on right now: what's going to happen after elections are over? What is next? How does the next day look like? And I think this is very important. This is what we want to put together and present to the Georgian public, because just saying that the government is not good enough, it's not good enough. We need to also present the picture for the future, vision for the future, and this is something that I think also will be very attractive for the Georgian population, Georgian voters, and therefore for other Georgian political parties.
Thank you for that. Um, a question that I have about the vision for the future. Um, you say that it is a decisive moment, and one of the unifying factors for you was the fear, in a sense, to what may happen if things don't go right after these elections. What is your message to the Georgian electors? Why should not they take the Dreamers deal and say that we, the Georgian Dream, take care about politics. We let you do whatever you want to be doing in your personal lives or doing your a little business on the side. We won't interfere, but you don't interfere with us. What are they losing by not participating?
They're losing the country, and this is I think, and they are losing their freedom. Where Georgian Dream is taking uh, Georgia is not something that Georgians want, because we remember what the Russians have done here, what they continue to do here. We remember the sacrifices of the generations of Georgians who sacrificed their lives to make sure that Georgia is independent and Georgia is firmly on course to Europe. So that's on the, let's say, mega level. But also on other levels, Georgian Dream is just not delivering. They are a political party who doesn't have a clue how to govern the state. And this is why hundreds of thousands of Georgians are simply fleeing the country. And we are seeing record numbers of immigration, record numbers of exodus, depopulation of cities and villages. So one may ask, why is this happening if everything is as Georgian Dream is portraying? Because things are really, really, really very bad for ordinary people. Healthcare is not good, wages are not good, cost of living is rising, and there's no prospect for a better future. There's no prospect for, and this prospect is very important. So people should believe that future will be better than yesterday. And this is what the Georgian Dream is not doing. Maybe they are catering to the elites which are allied to them. Maybe they are letting things slip or go by as usual, perhaps giving some handouts to their friendly businesses who are affiliated to a political party or eventually, etc., etc. But for the majority of Georgians, and we see it in the polls as well, things are just not right. And this is what needs to change. And things will be even worse if Georgia becomes again an isolated part of some gray zone under Russian influence, with corruption returning, with mobs returning to the streets. And this is what I feel every day when I talk to the people. When we go out in the streets and we have conversations and so on. So there's an overwhelming sense of disillusionment with the Georgian dream and disenchantment, because I can't recall, and you know that we've been working on electoral programs with political parties for years and years. I can't recall any major promise which the Georgian dream delivered. None of them. If we go from 2012 to today, no major promises have been delivered. Improvement of lives, stability, independence of courts, depoliticized police, good elections, better life, that we would surprise with our democracy everybody around the world, that will be like a front runner, etc. Nothing has happened. Nothing has happened. So I think people realize that. So what was maybe acceptable a few years ago is not acceptable anymore, especially with this U-turn, which the Georgian Dream has now decisively made to turn country on the Russian orbit. And this is a big change, because it's not only geopolitics; it's that daily lives of citizens will change significantly if Georgia will become some kind of impoverished autocracy under the Russian sphere of influence. And people are acutely aware of this.
There is one promise, though, that the Georgian Dream is presenting as something delivered on, and it is a major one. And they say it is a lack of war, basically, that in the circumstances when the international situation is worsening, we have Russian intervention in Ukraine, Georgia is internationally not threatened. Um, it is, of course, a concern and a legitimate fear of the Georgian citizens that something bad might happen, especially since we have the experience of that. What guarantee you can give them that the success of the opposition in October is not going to lead to instability?
Because, it's very simple. First of all, we must look a little bit through this misinformation which the Georgian Dream is feeding to the public. Uh, we are a country under occupation. 20% of Georgia is occupied, and I think that's something that hasn't changed. That hasn't. There are daily abductions of citizens. There is violence happening. So we are not. Well, we have a ceasefire, but Georgia is under a very difficult situation still vis-à-vis the Russian occupation. Then again, what we are witnessing today elsewhere beyond the areas occupied by Russia, in the capital, in other cities, it's the dissolution and collapse of state authority. We see mob in the streets going after civic activists, beating them up without any response from officials, from the police, without any due process following up to that. So this is not peace. This is the collapse of state authority, and this is something which the Georgians, especially of my generation, remember very well. What was happening when the state was controlled by some mob and the shadow criminals or shadow influencers, maybe influenced by the Russians, etc., etc., etc. So, well, where are we? So this is the problem that everyone realizes, I think. But then again, what is the promise of better Georgia? It's a security that if Georgia is democratic, no government will be allowed to do what it is doing now. No government will be able to really abuse its powers and go after individual citizens, be it civic activists or opposition figures, or or citizens who are just looking after their daily lives. Right now, they are unprotected against the abuse of power by the government. So that's not stability. That's not even peace. But looking at the big picture, where is Georgia safer? Alone without friends, or as part of Europe, allied with the strongest democratic partners? I think it's also a very simple message to communicate that this is basically what we are seeing also is the failure of Georgian Dream's disinformation. They have not been able to break this European consensus, no matter how much resources they invested, because people realize that Georgia alone is Georgia unprotected, Georgia fully occupied, and Georgian state independence disappearing. Georgia within the European Union, closely allied with the EU and with the United Nations, is Georgia safe and secure, developed and wealthy? And I think it's very clear in the eyes of many, many Georgians where their better future lies, regardless of what government TV broadcasters are saying.
Thank you. And just to change the register and go to a more technical thing, I think our listeners would like to know um, how exactly you plan to participate in the elections. Would you have your own list? Would you join some other list? What is the plan?
Well, we're just 5 days old, and but we're having conversations with Georgian politicians. Again, I said that we are here not to divide but to unite, and this was not just a rhetorical method. And this is why we haven't started with official registration of a party per se, because we realize that we will need to create stronger coalitions to defeat the Georgian Dream. So right now we're involved in dialogue with opposition political parties, and we see members of the Freedom Square as part of a big coalition that will present its electoral list during the elections. Independently, also, the Freedom Square will continue to campaign in coordination with our partners and allies, and I see it continuing its life after these elections as well. But for these elections, our aims are to play a constructive role in bringing together a big democratic coalition.
Thank you. And since we're approaching the end of our live casting window, we'll move to the next segment. As I told you, I would ask you exactly 22 questions that
Mhm.
are to identify your political orientation. Since you don't have a party line on many of these things consolidated yet, we agreed that it would be your personal positions, but I'm sure our listeners and will be happy to hear that too. So let me start. And these are mostly yes and no answers. If you want to add a couple of words, please do, but this is not a long answer format.
I'll do that for the most of them, I guess.
Okay, so first question. Whatever happens, you won't collaborate with the Georgian Dream to form a government? Yes or
Yeah,
no?
we won't. No.
Vetting of the judges, yes or no?
I think it's important, yes.
If the Georgian Dream goes in October, should civil servants that they have appointed should be vetted too?
It depends. I think for it depends on which civil servants and on which level. But definitely, we need to look it deeper into civil service reform.
Obligatory free school lunches for all public schools, yes or no?
I think every kid deserves a proper healthy lunch.
Are women's quotas on party lists useful for advancing women in politics?
Yes,
Should gay pride events be allowed to be freely held in Tbilisi?
I think no one should be forced to leave the country based on who that person is. And we should have a proper, peaceful, and democratic debate about every other issue that merits discussion and conversation.
Should Russian immigrants face stricter visa policies?
Yes.
Is it useful to talk with Sukhumi and Tskhinvali before the occupation?
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Is it useful to talk directly with Sukhumi and Tskhinvali before the occupation?
Before the occupation.
Before the occupation.
Ah, right. The occupation. All right. Yes. Sorry. No, I think we should work to have a new policy on how we re-engage with our citizens who live in occupied Abkhazia and South Ossetia.
Do you believe that pro-business economic policies will ultimately benefit all of us?
Yes, but I think the government has a role to play in helping right some of the wrongs that are structured in the Georgian economy.
Do you believe that the land is a commodity that should be freely bought and sold?
Depends.
Should the official public spaces, such as schools, municipalities, etc., be free of conspicuous religious symbols?
I think so.
Should the education system be primarily focused on giving students the necessary tools to find employment rather than shaping them ideologically?
Yes, I think especially partisan or any other ideology should be not part of the educational curricula.
Do you believe that the state ownership of the media is undesirable?
Um at this moment, maybe yes, but I believe in the idea of a public broadcaster.
Okay. Do you believe that in criminal justice, punishment is more important than rehabilitation?
Maybe equally both.
Um, do you believe that multinational companies are unethically exploiting developing countries?
Uh, uh, I think we can see the cases where not only multinationals but also other type of companies are doing the same. So human rights should be protected for everybody, regardless of what companies are involved.
Do you believe that morality in politics is fundamentally based on religious principles?
Religious principles play a very important part uh, in politics.
Do you believe that charity and charitable contributions, including from the business communities, is better than social security for helping people who are genuinely disadvantaged?
I don't see them as things that contradict each other. I see them both playing a very important part.
Do you believe that whatever goes in private bedroom between consenting adults is no business of the state?
Of course.
Do you believe that taxpayers should not be expected to support any theaters or museums that cannot survive on a commercial basis?
Not quite, because I think culture and arts is something that we cannot leave to the fate of market forces alone. So there is a role for the government to play there. But this should never
Do
be
you believe,
used as a tool for political influence.
understood. Do you believe that immigrants, new immigrants of other ethnicity or religion can never be fully integrated in Georgia?
No, I don't believe so. Uh,
Do you believe that all authority should be questioned?
Always.
Thank you very much. This is very interesting. I hope it was interesting for you as well, and for people who have joined us on
Indeed.
this first program. Hoping to see you again, and thank you everybody who was watching us. We were Civil Georgia's new program, Persona, that is meeting Georgian personalities of the day in Georgia's politics. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Bye.
Thank you, Jabba, and good luck to your new broadcast. Thanks for having me.